The great halls of the Zephyrian Empire stretched across 3 moons, their crystal walls reflecting the light of distant stars. High Commander Vextai stood before the War Council, his 6 arms crossed behind his back as he studied the holographic display floating in the center of the room. The display showed empty space where their scout fleets should have been. "Explain this to me again," Vextai said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 40 star systems. "How do we lose contact with 3 entire fleets?" General Korthon stepped forward, his scaled skin gleaming under the artificial lights. The fleets were investigating a small system in the outer rim, 3rd planet from their star, mostly water primitive inhabitants. The last transmission we received was them reporting first contact with the local species. And then nothing? "Nothing, High Commander. Complete silence for 6 months now." Vextai turned to face the council. 12 of the Empire's greatest military minds sat around the curved table, each representing a different conquered species now serving the Zephyrian cause. They had been meeting for 3 days, and still no one could explain how 3 fleets could simply vanish. "What do we know about these inhabitants?" Vextai asked. Admiral Sixra, a thin creature with 4 eyes, consulted her datapad. "They call themselves humans. Carbon-based life forms. Average height 2 meters, only 2 arms and 2 legs. They have primitive technology, barely capable of space travel within their own system. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and simple energy weapons. Population? Approximately 8 billion concentrated on the 3rd planet, with small colonies on nearby moons and planets." Vexithai's mandibles clicked together, a sign of deep thought among his species. 8 billion primitives defeated 3 of our scout fleets. "Perhaps they had help," suggested General Korthon. "The hegemony has been expanding in that direction. They might have provided weapons." "No," Admiral Sixra shook her head. "Our intelligence shows no contact between the humans and any spacefaring civilization before our scouts arrived. They were completely isolated. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. The Zephyrian Empire had not lost military forces in over 200 years. They had perfected the art of war, combining superior technology with genetically enhanced soldiers and battle-tested strategies. The idea that primitive humans could threaten them seemed impossible. "What are our options?" Vextai asked. "We could send a larger force," General Korthon suggested. 10 fleets instead of 3. "Or we could avoid the system entirely," said Admiral Sixra. "It holds little strategic value. The resources there are common, nothing we cannot find elsewhere." Vexthai's 4 eyes narrowed. "The Zephyrian Empire does not retreat from primitives. If we ignore this challenge, word will spread. Other species will think we have grown weak." He paused, studying the star map again. "No, we will respond, but we will do it properly this time." He activated his personal communicator. "Summon the Crimson Talon." A collective intake of breath echoed through the council chamber. The Crimson Talon was the Empire's elite strike force, 1,000 of their most deadly warriors. Each member had been genetically modified from birth, enhanced with artificial organs, reinforced bones, and neural implants that increased their reaction time to superhuman levels. They carried weapons that could level city blocks and wore armor that could withstand direct hits from starship cannons. "High Commander," Admiral Sixra said carefully, "perhaps the Crimson Talon is excessive for dealing with primitives." 3 fleets went missing," Vextai replied coldly. "I will not make the same mistake twice. The Crimson Talon will investigate what happened to our scouts and eliminate any threat they find." Within hours, the massive command ship Inevitable Victory began preparing for departure. The ship was 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack planets and carrying enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. Its hangar bays held 1,000 smaller ships, each one more advanced than anything the humans possessed. Commander Zareth of the Crimson Talon reviewed the mission briefings in his quarters. At 3 meters tall and weighing over 200 kilograms of enhanced muscle and bone, he was an impressive sight even among his enhanced comrades. His skin was a deep purple color, marked with ritual scars that told the story of his victories. 4 arms allowed him to carry multiple weapons, while his enhanced nervous system let him process battlefield information faster than any organic mind should be able to. "Primitive humans," he said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Vorak. "This feels like a waste of our talents." Vorak, slightly smaller but equally enhanced, nodded. "The High Commander wants to send a message. No species defies the Empire without consequences. What could they have possibly done to 3 scout fleets? Zareth wondered aloud. Our scouts carry enough firepower to destroy their entire civilization. Perhaps they got careless, Vorak suggested. Primitives can be unpredictable. Maybe our people underestimated them. Zareth pulled up the tactical analysis of human capabilities. Their weapons were laughably primitive. Metal projectiles fired by chemical explosions. Simple lasers that could barely penetrate basic armor. Their ships were slow, clumsy, and unshielded. By every measure, they should have been helpless against Zephyrian technology. Look at this, Zareth said, pointing to an image of human soldiers. They do not even have proper battle armor. Just metal plates and fabric. One shot from our pulse rifles would vaporize them. Their numbers are impressive, though, Vorak noted. 8 billion of them, even if they are weak individually. That is a lot of enemies. Numbers mean nothing without proper weapons and training, Zareth replied. We have conquered species with better technology and superior numbers. These humans will fall just like all the others. The departure ceremony was held in the main hangar of the inevitable victory. 1,000 Crimson Talon warriors stood in perfect formation, their black armor gleaming under the lights. Each warrior carried enough weapons to arm a small army: pulse rifles, plasma grenades, molecular swords, and personal shield generators. Their armor could survive in space, underwater, or in the heart of a volcano. High Commander Vextai addressed them from the raised platform. Warriors of the Crimson Talon, you are being sent to investigate the disappearance of our scout fleets and eliminate any threat you discover. You represent the might of the Zephyrian Empire. Show these humans what happens when primitives dare to challenge us. For the Empire, the warriors roared in unison, their voices echoing through the hangar. As the inevitable victory prepared to jump to hyperspace, none of them suspected they were making a terrible mistake. The intelligence reports had told them everything about human technology, human numbers, and human capabilities. But they had missed the most important thing about humans: their refusal to give up when their survival was at stake. The ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying the Empire's finest warriors toward a small blue planet, where something had already begun that would change the galaxy forever. In just a few days, they would learn why 3 scout fleets had gone silent. But by then, it would be too late to turn back. The war between the Zephyrian Empire and humanity was about to begin, and neither side truly understood what they were getting into. The inevitable victory dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its sensors immediately beginning to scan for threats. Commander Zareth stood on the bridge studying the readings with growing confusion. Where he expected to find the wreckage of human ships and the remains of their civilization, he found something entirely different. Sir, reported sensor operator Kylan, I am detecting massive orbital installations around the 3rd planet. They were not in our original intelligence reports. Zareth moved to the sensor station. On the screen he could see dozens of large structures orbiting Earth, space stations, weapons platforms, and what appeared to be manufacturing facilities. All of them were new, built within the last few months. How is this possible? Zareth asked. Our report said they could barely reach their own moon. It appears they have been busy since our scouts arrived, said Lieutenant Vorak. Look at this. Asteroid mining operations, orbital shipyards, and these structures here appear to be weapon platforms. Weapons platforms? Zareth studied the readings more carefully. What kind of weapons? Difficult to say, sir. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. They appear to be using modified versions of their primitive technology, but scaled up considerably. Admiral Trixon, the ship's commanding officer, joined them at the sensor station. Should we proceed with caution, Commander? Zareth's mandibles clicked in annoyance. These are still primitives, Admiral. Their technology may be new, but it cannot match ours. Take us in. I want to see what happened to our scouts. As the inevitable victory moved deeper into the system, more details became clear. The humans had not just built orbital defenses. They had transformed their entire space around their planet into a fortress. Debris fields from destroyed ships created obstacles for approaching vessels. Automated defense satellites waited like sleeping predators among the asteroids. And everywhere human ships moved in patterns that suggested they knew exactly where the Zephyrian ship was. Sir, Kylan said, his voice uncertain, I am detecting approximately 300 human ships converging on our position. 300? Zareth looked at the tactical display. The human ships were small, Much smaller than Zephyrian vessels, but there were so many of them. What are their capabilities? Still analyzing, sir. They appear to be using a combination of their chemical rockets and some kind of new propulsion system. Speed is actually quite impressive for primitive technology. The first human ship to approach was barely 50 meters long, a tiny thing compared to the 2-kilometer length of the inevitable Victory. It moved in a strange, erratic pattern that made it difficult to target. "Open communications," Zareth ordered. "Let us see what these humans have to say." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human ship. A female human sat in the command chair, her dark hair pulled back severely. She wore what appeared to be a military uniform, though it was unlike anything in the Zephyrian database. "Alien vessel," the human said, her voice calm but firm. "You are entering restricted space. Turn around and leave immediately." Zareth stepped forward. "I am Commander Zareth of the Crimson Talon. You will surrender immediately and submit to questioning about the fate of our scout fleets." The human's expression did not change. "Your scout fleets attacked civilian targets and killed innocent people. They were stopped. You have 30 seconds to reverse course before we stop you too." "Stopped?" Zareth's 4 eyes narrowed. "Primitive human, you do not understand what you are facing. We are the Crimson Talon, elite warriors of the Zephyrian Empire. Your entire species could not threaten us." The human smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. 20 seconds. "Admiral," Zareth said, turning to Trixon, "prepare weapons. Show them what happens when primitives threaten the Empire." But before the inevitable Victory could fire, the human ships attacked. What followed was unlike any space battle in Zephyrian history. The human ships did not try to engage in traditional combat. Instead, they swarmed like insects, using their small size and numbers to their advantage. Some ships fired projectile weapons. Not the simple chemical bullets the Zephyrians expected, but massive kinetic rounds accelerated to incredible speeds. Others used directed energy weapons that, while individually weak, became dangerous when 50 ships fired at the same target simultaneously. But the most shocking tactic was when human ships began ramming the inevitable Victory directly. Ship after ship smashed into the Zephyrian vessel's hull, their crews dying instantly but taking chunks of armor plating with them. Each impact was small, but there were so many of them. "They are killing themselves to damage us," Vorak said in disbelief. "What kind of species does this?" "A desperate one," Zareth replied, but even he was shaken. "All units launch fighters and boarding pods. If they want to die, we will help them." The Crimson Talon warriors launched from their ship in heavily armored assault pods, expecting easy victory once they reached the human space stations. But when they broke through the hull of the first station, they found themselves in a nightmare. The humans had prepared for boarding actions. Every corridor was a death trap, filled with explosives, automated weapons, and humans who fought with a desperation the Zephyrians had never encountered. When a Crimson Talon warrior's superior armor made him nearly invulnerable to human weapons, the humans simply brought down the ceiling on top of him. When their small arms could not penetrate Zephyrian shields, they used industrial equipment as weapons. Welding torches, mining charges, even pressurized water systems turned into weapons. Warrior Kekstar found himself fighting through what appeared to be a civilian area of the station. Human families had barricaded themselves into defensive positions, and children barely old enough to walk were throwing makeshift explosives. An elderly human male, clearly too old to be a soldier, operated a mining laser that cut through Kekstar's armor like paper. "These are not soldiers," he reported over the communication system. "These are civilians, but they fight like trained warriors." "All humans are fighting," came the reply from another team. "There are no non-combatants here. They have turned their entire population into an army." The space battle continued for hours. Human ships kept coming, wave after wave of them. When they ran out of proper warships, they started using cargo vessels, mining ships, even passenger liners fitted with weapons. Each ship that died took some piece of the inevitable Victory with it. By the time the first day of fighting ended, the mighty Zephyrian ship was battered and damaged. Dozens of Crimson Talon warriors were dead or missing, and the human defenses seemed to be getting stronger rather than weaker. "Sir," Admiral Trixon reported, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth. They want to talk." The same human female appeared on screen, but now she was clearly aboard a planetary facility rather than a ship. Behind her, Zareth could see massive manufacturing equipment working at full speed. "Alien Commander," she said. "I am Admiral Chen of Earth Defense Command. You have seen what happens when you attack us. Your scouts learned the same lesson. Leave now and we will let you go." "Impossible," Zareth said. "The Zephyrian Empire does not retreat from primitives." Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "Then you will learn what your scouts learned. Humans do not give up. We do not surrender. And we do not forgive those who threaten our families." She paused. "You wanted to know what happened to your scouts? They found out that when you back humans into a corner, we do not curl up and die. We bite back." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the inevitable victory in silence. Outside, more human ships were approaching, and the orbital defenses were powering up for another assault. Commander Zareth realized with growing horror that this was not going to be the quick victory he had expected. Somehow, these primitive humans had become something far more dangerous than anyone in the Empire had imagined. They had become an enemy that refused to lose. 3 days after the first battle, Commander Zareth stood in the medical bay of the inevitable victory, looking down at one of his fallen warriors. Warrior Dexmol had been one of their best: enhanced reflexes, reinforced skeleton, and over 50 years of combat experience. Now he lay unconscious, his armor cracked and his body broken by a human mining charge that should never have been able to harm him. "How many?" Zareth asked the medical officer. 43 warriors dead, 67 wounded, and 12 missing," Dr. Hickstar replied. "The missing ones were lost during boarding actions on human stations. We believe they are dead, but the humans recovered the bodies before we could confirm. 43 dead, in 3 days of fighting against primitives." Zareth's mandibles clicked in frustration and growing anger. The Crimson Talon had fought against species with advanced technology, superior numbers, and centuries of military experience. They had never lost so many warriors so quickly. "What is the status of the human orbital defenses?" he asked Lieutenant Vorak. "Surprisingly intact, sir. Every time we destroy one platform, they rebuild it within hours. Their manufacturing capabilities are beyond what our intelligence suggested. They appear to be converting their entire industrial base to military production." Zareth walked to the bridge where Admiral Trixon was coordinating the next phase of the assault. The plan was simple. If the humans wanted to fight in space, the Zephyrians would take the battle to the surface of their planet. Orbital bombardment would force them to surrender. "Admiral, begin the bombardment," Zareth ordered. "Target their major cities and industrial centers. Once their infrastructure is destroyed, they will have no choice but to submit." "Yes, Commander." The inevitable victory's main guns charged up, preparing to rain destruction on Earth's surface. But as the first energy beams lanced down toward the planet, something unexpected happened. The beam struck empty ground. "What happened to the cities?" Zareth demanded. "Sensors show massive underground construction," reported Killen. "It appears the humans have evacuated their surface population and moved everything underground. The cities are empty shells." "How deep?" "Some tunnels extend several kilometers down. They have built an entire civilization beneath the surface. Our orbital bombardment is hitting empty buildings." Zareth stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. In just a few months, the humans had not only built orbital defenses but had also moved their entire civilization underground. The level of organization and effort required was staggering. "Sir," Admiral Trixon said, "we could use deep-penetrating warheads, crack the planet's crust and collapse their tunnels." "No," Zareth replied. "The Empire wants this planet's resources intact. We will have to go down there and dig them out." The first landing forces consisted of 500 Crimson Talon warriors, the finest soldiers the Empire had ever produced. They descended to Earth's surface in heavily armored dropships, expecting to face scattered resistance from frightened civilians hiding underground. Instead, they found a planet that had been transformed into a fortress. The moment the dropships touched down, the ground erupted around them. Hidden weapon systems emerged from concealed positions, firing everything from conventional artillery to improvised weapons that the Zephyrians had never seen before. Human soldiers appeared from tunnels and bunkers that had been invisible until the moment they opened fire. Squad leader Texwan led his unit through what had once been a human city. The empty buildings around them were not really empty. They had been converted into death traps. Every window might hide a sniper. Every doorway could conceal explosives. The humans had turned their own cities into weapons against invaders. "Contact front," one of his warriors shouted. But before Texwan could respond, the building next to them collapsed. The humans had not just hidden explosives in it, They had turned the entire structure into a massive booby trap. How did they know we would be here? Another warrior asked as they took cover behind some rubble. They do not know, Texwan realized. They have trapped everything. Every street, every building, every possible approach. They have made their entire planet hostile to invaders. The fighting on the surface was unlike anything the Crimson Talon had experienced. The humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like the planet itself was alive and angry. When Zephyrian units tried to establish landing zones, the ground would suddenly give way, revealing deep pits filled with spikes or explosives. When they tried to advance through city streets, entire buildings would collapse on top of them. But the real shock came when the Zephyrians encountered human civilians. On other worlds, non-combatants fled or surrendered when faced with superior military force. Human civilians fought back with whatever they could find. Children threw bottles filled with corrosive chemicals. Elderly humans operated heavy weapons from concealed positions. Even humans who were clearly injured or sick continued to fight. There are no non-combatants, reported squad leader Voxtar over the communication system. Every human we encounter is armed and hostile. They have turned their entire population into an army. What about their military forces? Zareth asked from orbit. We have not seen any organized military units yet, sir. But we do not need to. Every civilian is fighting like a trained soldier. The truth was even more disturbing than Voxtar realized. The humans had not just armed their civilians, they had trained them. In the months since the first Zephyrian scout ships had arrived, humanity had prepared for invasion with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Every man, woman, and child on Earth had been given weapons training, taught how to make explosives from household materials, and shown how to turn everyday objects into weapons. More importantly, they had been taught to never give up. When warrior Keelrex captured a wounded human soldier, he expected the primitive creature to beg for mercy or provide information about human defenses. Instead, the human spat in his face and said, "You picked the wrong species to mess with." "Tell me where your command centers are located," Keelrex demanded. "And I will make your death quick." The human laughed, blood running down his chin. "You still do not understand, do you? There are no command centers. There are no leaders you can kill to make us stop fighting. Every human on this planet is the command center. Every one of us will fight until you are all dead." "Impossible. Every military force has a hierarchy, commander's weak points. Not us," the human said. "You taught us something when your scouts attacked our colonies. You taught us that you cannot be reasoned with, that you will not stop until we are all dead, so we decided that you have to die first." Before Keelrex could respond, the human triggered a hidden explosive device he had been carrying. The blast killed them both. This pattern repeated across the planet. Captured humans would not provide information, would not surrender, and often killed themselves rather than be taken prisoner. They fought with a determination that the Zephyrians found disturbing and impossible to understand. "They are insane," reported one squad leader. "They would rather die than live under our rule." "Then let them die," Zareth replied coldly. "Kill them all if necessary." But killing humans proved to be much harder than expected. When Zephyrian forces destroyed one group of defenders, more humans would emerge from the tunnel systems to take their place. When they collapsed one section of underground city, the humans would simply move to another section and continue fighting. Worse, the humans were learning. Each encounter taught them something new about Zephyrian tactics, weapons, and weaknesses. They began targeting specific pieces of Zephyrian equipment, using captured weapons against their former owners, and developing new tactics specifically designed to counter Zephyrian advantages. After a week of fighting on the surface, the Crimson Talon had managed to establish only 3 small footholds on Earth. Each one was under constant attack, supplied with difficulty, and cost dozens of warriors to maintain. They had killed thousands of humans, but somehow there always seemed to be more of them. "Sir," Lieutenant Vorak reported, "we are receiving reports from all surface units. The humans are not just defending anymore. They are starting to hunt our patrols." "Hunt them?" "Yes, sir. Organized groups of humans are tracking down isolated Zephyrian units and destroying them. They appear to have learned our patrol patterns and are setting up ambushes." Zareth felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Doubt. These humans were supposed to be primitive, disorganized, and easy to defeat. Instead, they had proven to be resourceful, determined, and absolutely refusing to accept defeat. How long can they maintain this level of resistance? He asked. Unknown, sir, but they show no signs of weakening. If anything, they seem to be getting better at fighting us. Looking down at the planet below, Zareth realized that this was not going to be the quick victory the Empire had expected. The humans had turned their entire world into a weapon, and they were wielding it with deadly effectiveness against the finest warriors the galaxy had ever produced. The turning point came in the third week of fighting, when squad leader Bextar was preparing for what should have been a routine patrol through the ruins of what humans had called New York. His unit of 12 Crimson Talon warriors was sweeping through the abandoned subway tunnels, looking for human resistance cells. The first sign something was wrong came when they found the bodies. 3 Zephyrian warriors from a patrol that had gone missing 2 days earlier lay in a carefully arranged display in one of the tunnel intersections. Their armor had been stripped away, their weapons taken, and their bodies positioned to send a clear message. The humans were no longer just defending themselves, they were hunting. Sir, reported warrior Kexhul, these wounds were made by our own weapons. The humans are using Zephyrian pulse rifles. Bextar examined the bodies more closely. The kills were clean, professional, and showed a deep understanding of Zephyrian anatomy. Someone had taught the humans exactly where to shoot to penetrate their armor and cause maximum damage. How did they learn our weak points so quickly? He wondered aloud. The answer came from the shadows around them. Human soldiers emerged from concealed positions, but these were not the desperate civilians the Zephyrians had been fighting for weeks. These humans moved with trained precision, carried advanced weapons, and wore armor that looked suspiciously similar to modified Zephyrian equipment. Surrender, said the lead human, a tall male with scars across his face and cold, calculating eyes. Drop your weapons and you will be taken prisoner. Bextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. Primitive human, you are outnumbered and outgunned. You should surrender to us. The human smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Look around you, Bextar did, and his confidence evaporated. The tunnel intersection was filled with humans, dozens of them, all carrying weapons, all positioned to create a perfect crossfire. More disturbing, many of them were wearing pieces of Zephyrian armor and carrying Zephyrian weapons. How did you get our equipment? Bextar demanded. We took it from your dead, the human replied matter-of-factly, just like we are going to take yours. The battle that followed was unlike anything Bextar had experienced. The humans fought with the same desperate determination he had seen in civilians, but now they combined it with professional military tactics and captured Zephyrian technology. They knew exactly how Zephyrian armor worked, where its weak points were, and how to use captured weapons against their former owners. Within minutes, half of Bextar's unit was dead, and the survivors were trapped in a position with no escape. The humans offered surrender again, and this time, Bextar accepted. The interrogation that followed revealed the true scope of what the humans had accomplished. They had not just been fighting for survival, they had been learning. Every engagement, every captured piece of equipment, every dead Zephyrian had taught them something new about their enemies. You want to know what happened to your scout fleets? The human interrogator asked. She was a small female, unremarkable by Zephyrian standards, but her eyes held the cold intelligence of a professional soldier. They made the same mistake you are making. They thought we were just primitives who would roll over and die. Our technology is superior to yours, Bextar insisted. Our warriors are genetically enhanced. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. And that made you predictable, the human replied. You fight the same way every time, use the same tactics, make the same assumptions. We studied your scouts, learned how you think, how you fight, what you consider impossible. She smiled. Then we did the impossible. The human showed him recordings from the battles against the scout fleets. What Bextar saw made his blood run cold. The humans had not just defeated the scouts. They had systematically destroyed them using captured Zephyrian technology, modified human equipment, and tactics that exploited every weakness in Zephyrian doctrine. You learned all this from fighting our scouts? We learned this from studying your dead, the human corrected. Every warrior who dies teaches us something. Every piece of equipment we capture makes us stronger. Every battle makes us better at killing your kind. Back aboard the inevitable victory, Commander Zareth was receiving increasingly disturbing reports from the surface. Human attacks were becoming more coordinated, more effective, and more deadly. Worse, they were no longer just defensive operations. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Vorak, "Patrol Delta 7 has gone missing. That makes 6 units lost in the last 4 days." "Missing or destroyed?" "Unknown, sir. They simply stop responding to communications. When we send search teams, we find no trace of them." Admiral Trixon joined them at the tactical display. "Commander, we need to consider the possibility that we are losing this engagement." "Impossible," Zareth replied, but even he could hear the doubt in his own voice. "We are the Crimson Talon. We do not lose to primitives." "These humans are no longer primitive," Trixon said quietly. "They have adapted to our technology, learned our tactics, and somehow managed to turn their weaknesses into strengths. They are fighting a different kind of war than we have ever seen." As if to prove his point, alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the ship. "Alert," announced the computer. "Hull breach detected. Unauthorized personnel aboard the ship. How is that possible?" Zareth demanded. "We are in orbit." The answer came when human soldiers appeared on the bridge itself. They had somehow infiltrated the ship, moved through corridors filled with advanced security systems, and reached the command center without being detected. They were wearing modified Zephyrian armor and carrying weapons that combined human and alien technology. "Nobody move," said the lead human, a female with short hair and the bearing of a veteran soldier. "We are not here to destroy your ship. We are here to deliver a message." Zareth reached for his sidearm but froze when he realized how many humans were covering him. "What message?" "Your empire sent you here to eliminate a threat," the human said. "You found one, but it is not what you expected. We are not going to surrender. We are not going to negotiate. We are going to keep fighting until every one of you is dead or gone. You cannot hope to defeat the entire Zephyrian Empire," Zareth said. "We do not have to defeat your entire empire," the human replied. "We just have to defeat you, and then we will be ready when the next fleet arrives." She gestured to one of her companions, who placed a small device on the bridge's main console. "That is a gift from the people of Earth. It contains everything we have learned about Zephyrian technology, tactics, and biology. Consider it a preview of what we will do to the next force you send." "You are making a terrible mistake," Zareth warned. "The Empire has resources you cannot imagine. We can send 100 fleets, 1,000 fleets. Then we will be ready for them," the human said simply. "We learn from every battle, adapt to every new threat, and never ever give up. Your scouts taught us that. You are teaching us even more." The humans withdrew as quickly as they had appeared, leaving the bridge crew shaken and the device behind. When Zareth activated it, what he saw on the screen made him understand, perhaps for the first time, exactly what kind of enemy they were facing. The device contained detailed analysis of Zephyrian technology, biological studies of captured warriors, tactical assessments of their fighting methods, and worst of all, improvement plans. The humans had not just been fighting the Crimson Talon, they had been studying them, learning from them, and developing countermeasures for everything the Zephyrians could do. "They have turned us into their teachers," Zareth said quietly. "Every battle we fight makes them stronger." "Sir," Vorak said, his voice shaken, "what are your orders?" Zareth looked at the tactical display showing their forces on Earth's surface. What had started as a simple extermination mission had become something far more dangerous. The humans had not just survived the assault of the Crimson Talon, they had learned from it, adapted to it, and begun turning it against its creators. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Zareth of the Crimson Talon began to consider the possibility that retreat might be the only option. But deep down, he suspected it was already too late for that. Commander Zareth stood in the ruins of what had once been the inevitable Victory's main hangar bay. Human saboteurs had somehow penetrated the ship's most secure areas and destroyed half their remaining fighter craft. Worse, they had done it without triggering a single alarm, leaving behind only a simple message written in Zephyrian script. "We told you to leave. How many do we have left?" he asked Lieutenant Vorak. 437 warriors operational, sir. The rest are dead, missing, or too wounded to fight." Vorak's voice carried a weariness that Zareth had never heard before. "Ship's crew casualties are also mounting. The humans seem to be able to move through our vessel at will. 437. They had started with 1,000 of the Empire's finest warriors. In just 1 month of fighting against primitive humans, they had lost over half their force. What is the status of our surface operations?" We have abandoned all ground positions, sir. The humans were picking off our forces faster than we could reinforce them. Every patrol we sent out either came back damaged or did not come back at all. Zareth walked to the bridge's main viewport and stared down at Earth. From orbit, the planet looked peaceful, almost inviting. But he knew better now. Down there, 8 billion humans were working with single-minded determination to kill every Zephyrian in their system. They had turned their entire world into a weapon specifically designed to destroy invaders. Sir, Admiral Trixon approached carefully. I strongly recommend we consider withdrawal. This engagement is not proceeding according to any tactical doctrine we understand. The Crimson Talon does not retreat, Zareth said automatically, but the words felt hollow even to him. Sir, with respect, the Crimson Talon has never faced an enemy like this. These humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They adapt, they learn, and they never stop coming. As if summoned by their conversation, alerts began sounding throughout the ship again. This time, however, the threat was not human infiltrators aboard the vessel. It was coming from space itself. Sir, Sensor Operator Kylan called out, I am detecting multiple human ships approaching our position. Configuration unknown. They appear to be using captured Zephyrian technology combined with their own designs. On the tactical display, Zareth could see dozens of ships converging on their position. But these were not the primitive human vessels they had faced at the beginning of the engagement. These ships moved with the speed and agility of Zephyrian craft, but they flew in patterns that no Zephyrian pilot would attempt. How many ships? Admiral Trixon asked. 143 confirmed contacts, sir. More are launching from the planet's surface. That is impossible, Zareth said. We destroyed their orbital shipyards in the first week of fighting. They rebuilt them, sir. Underground this time, connected to their tunnel networks. Our orbital bombardment never reached them. The first wave of human ships reached weapons range, and what followed was unlike any space battle in Zephyrian history. The humans had learned from every previous engagement, studied every Zephyrian tactic, and developed countermeasures for every advantage the aliens possessed. When Zephyrian fighters launched to intercept them, the human ships used swarm tactics that overwhelmed individual pilots with sheer numbers. When the inevitable victory's main guns tried to target them, they moved in unpredictable patterns that made accurate fire impossible. When Zephyrian shields deflected their weapons, they simply concentrated fire from multiple ships until the shields overloaded. But the most devastating human tactic was one that no Zephyrian strategist had ever considered. Human ships began deliberately ramming the inevitable victory, not as desperate last resort, but as a calculated strategy. Each ship that sacrificed itself took out critical systems, weapons turrets, or sensor arrays. The humans had calculated exactly how many ships they needed to sacrifice to cripple their enemy, and they executed the plan with mechanical precision. They are not fighting to win, Admiral Trixon said in horrified realization. They are fighting to make sure we lose. What is the difference? Zareth asked. A normal enemy tries to preserve their own forces while defeating ours. These humans will sacrifice anything, destroy anything, lose anything, as long as it means we cannot succeed. The battle raged for hours. Human ships kept coming, wave after wave of them, each one designed specifically to exploit some weakness in Zephyrian defenses. When one tactic stopped working, they immediately switched to another. When their weapons proved ineffective, they turned their ships themselves into weapons. Sir, Kylan reported, his voice shaking, the humans are transmitting a message. On the main screen appeared a familiar face, Admiral Chen, the human military commander they had first encountered weeks ago. But she looked different now, older, harder, with the expression of someone who had seen too much death and decided that more death was the only solution. Commander Zareth, she said, this is your final warning. Leave our system now or we will destroy every ship you have. Admiral Chen, Zareth replied, you cannot hope to defeat us. Even if you destroy this fleet, the Empire will send more, larger fleets with more powerful weapons. Let them come, Chen said simply. We will be ready. Every fleet you send will teach us something new about how to kill your kind. Eventually, we will learn enough to bring the war to your worlds instead of waiting for you to bring it to ours. You are threatening the entire Zephyrian Empire? We are promising the entire Zephyrian Empire that if you continue to threaten us, we will find a way to threaten you back. Your scouts attacked our colonies and killed our people. You came here expecting to finish the job. Instead, you have taught us that the only way to be safe is to make sure no alien species ever thinks about attacking humanity again." The transmission ended, and immediately the human attacks intensified. They had been holding back, Zareth realized. The devastating assault they had faced so far was just a preview of what humans could do when they really committed to destroying something. "All hands," Admiral Trixon announced over the ship's communication system. "Prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace. We are evacuating the system." "Admiral," Zareth said, "we cannot retreat. The Empire's reputation. We'll survive better if some of us live to warn them about what we found here," Trixon replied grimly. "Sir, look at those displays. Look at what these humans have done to us. If we stay, they will kill every single warrior and crew member aboard this ship. If we leave, at least someone will be able to tell the Empire what kind of enemy we have awakened." As the inevitable victory prepared to jump to hyperspace, Zareth sent one final transmission to Earth. "This is not over," he said. Admiral Chen's reply was immediate. "Yes, it is. For you it is over. For your Empire it is just beginning. You came here to destroy us. Instead you have taught us how to destroy you. When your people ask what happened to the mighty Crimson Talon, tell them this. We found humans. The ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Sol system behind. Of the 1,000 elite warriors who had arrived with such confidence, fewer than 400 survived the retreat. The inevitable victory itself was so damaged that it barely held together during the jump. But the real damage was not to ships or warriors. It was to the reputation and confidence of the Zephyrian Empire. For the first time in their history, their finest military force had been defeated not by superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but by an enemy that simply refused to accept defeat. The humans had learned something important during the month-long battle. Aliens could be beaten. Their technology could be captured and improved. Their tactics could be studied and countered. Their confidence could be shattered. When the battered remnants of the Crimson Talon finally reached Zephyrian space, they carried with them a warning that would echo through the Empire's halls of power. Avoid the Sol system at all costs. The humans who lived there had learned to fight back, and they were very, very good at it. High Commander Vexthai received Zareth's report in stunned silence. The Empire's most elite military force, equipped with the finest weapons and technology, had been defeated by primitives who should not have been able to threaten them. "Recommendations?" Vexthai asked. "Quarantine the system," Zareth replied without hesitation. "Post warning beacons. Never send another ship there. The humans have learned too much. They are no longer the primitives we thought they were. And if they expand beyond their system?" Zareth was quiet for a long moment. "Then, High Commander, I suggest we hope they do not remember that we started this war. The Zephyrian Empire, masters of 1,000 worlds and conquerors of countless species, quietly updated their star charts. The Sol system was marked as hazardous space to be avoided by all Imperial vessels. They never spoke publicly of what had happened to the Crimson Talon, but word spread through the galaxy anyway. Humanity had taught the universe's most powerful empire to fear them. And that was just the beginning.